The only scan tool you need, the MotorScan Universal Diagnostic Scan Tool, for motorcycles, scooters, ATVs and UTVs, and side-by-sides. Handheld and easy to use. Works with 87 brands, over 6,000 models, and more than 16,000 applications.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another awesome episode of On the Throttle with Jacqui Van Ham and my buddy Josh here, bringing you all of the new news going on in motorcycling. Huge thanks, of course, to today's sponsor. Make sure you go stop by that website and check them out if you're looking for some diagnostics help. Now, let's jump into today's show because we have some super hot off the presses breaking news going on. I know for myself, I'm packing my bags. I head to Daytona Bike Week tomorrow, and beep, breaking news. Buell Motorcycles just announced that they are going to be showing off not one, but two machines down at Daytona Bike Week this week. So I'll be checking that out. We're going to talk about that during today's show, as well as a handful of other great events that are finally making their way back to the calendar. I couldn't be more excited about it. And what do you have going on in your neck of the woods, Josh?
So a suit, a guitar, and a motorcycle walk into a bar. It's not the dad joke. That's going to be my first one. The second one that I've got is it's all about GASGAS. And no, I'm not talking about the stuff you put in your tank.
I was going to say, is that what happens after you eat a huge bowl of chili? Is that what we're talking about today, Josh?
That also, yes.
Right on. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Like I already just said, I'm packing my bags. I head to Daytona Bike Week tomorrow. If you did not catch last week's show, I had several, and by several, I mean pretty much the whole dang show, talking about Daytona and some of the awesome stuff that's going on down there this year and the racing, and more racing that's happening down there that you should be going and checking out, as well as, of course, Main Street and Josh's favorite event, the Coleslaw Wrestling, that goes on at the Cabbage Patch. So make sure you go check out last week's episode. You can always watch these shows here on the thread, so make sure you go check them out. They live out here on the internets forever. All right,
which is scary.
Let's go ahead. You're welcome, Josh. You're welcome. So let's jump into our very first topic. Like I said, this just landed on the internet. I was pulling my stories together today, and it just popped up, and I knew immediately I wanted us to go ahead and talk about it. If you have, I don't want to say if you have not been paying attention, because this story has so many twists and turns. I laughed, I cried. It was better than Cats. It has so much going on in the Buell saga that has been happening since the 1970s. Buell is the brand, the man, the brand, and the bikes that just keep on kicking. They keep on coming back. Buell Motorcycles now is in its fifth. Josh, how many incantations, how many variations of this company have been around now? But anyway, they are back. They are still continuing production. It is real. It is not a unicorn. And more importantly, they are showing off a handful of very exciting bikes down at Daytona Bike Week. They're going to be showing these bikes at Destination Daytona, which is the Bruce Rossmeyer's dealership up in Ormond Beach. They had these little spy pics that they were putting out on the interwebs. As you can see, they're not giving away all the goodies. They're not giving away all the details, but you could definitely tell, particularly with those aluminum boxes, that this is their jump all the way into the adventure bike category. It's got the big aluminum boxes, big tall windshield, chunky knobby tire on the back, some great kind of spy concept-y type photos going on. And then they're going to be showing another bike there, which this I thought was absolutely bananas. This is going to be a dirt bike. That's right. Buell Motorcycles not only getting into adventure bikes, they are also getting into the dirt bike game. And if it's Buell Motorcycles, it's got to be about performance. That is their whole thing that they have been known for since the very beginning. Very cool bikes, tons of style, but performance. So anyway, the third slide that I'm going to show you right now is a really neat dirt bike that Buell is also going to be showing down there. And this is real. This is not a unicorn. This is a real thing. Let's go ahead and chat about some of the specs. Buell Motorcycles have announced they'll be unveiling 2 new production models at Daytona Bike Week. This on the screen right now is the Baja DR, and then Super Touring 1190 was that adventure bike that we were just checking out. This is really exciting to me. The Super Touring 1190 has a tagline calling itself the world's fastest production touring bike. So I'm very curious to hear what's going on with that. Um, Both bikes will be powered by Buell's liquid-cooled 1190cc V-twin motor that is already existing in several other models as well. And then now the Baja DR, which this is why this is so bananas, will produce 175 horsepower and 101 foot-pounds of torque, an alarming amount of for loose surface riding that will come with an adjustable swing arm, meaning the wheelbase can be set. Production of the Baja DR is expected to start in 2023, and Buell expects the pricing to be around $20,000. Production for the Super Touring is expected to start later this year, and according to Bill Melvin, who is the current CEO of Buell Motorcycle Company, prices for that are going to start at $21,995. You can put down a reservation for the bike for a whopping $25, and they will be available on the interwebs starting on the 5th of March. So that's all what's happening from the folks at Buell for Daytona Bike Week. I am super, super excited to check out these two machines. Josh, as you know, the Buell story is just full of ups and downs, and you never know what's going to happen. This is, by the way, just for transparency's sake, the current Buell motorcycle brand, which is what we're talking about right now.
Yep.
While still very, very cool, very made in the USA, really, really interesting designs coming down the pike. Eric Buell is no longer affiliated with this company. He was bought out, lock, stock, barrel. They literally bought the factories, the tooling. They bought all of it. I think they had to pull him out of bankruptcy, if I remember the story correctly.
Yep.
So he is no longer affiliated with this brand, but they are continuing on with the Buell name. Josh, that is some very exciting news. What do you think about that story?
It's interesting. It's kind of twofold. So this fastest touring bike, whatever that, I mean, that's going to be a big title, because I know Kawasaki on the flip side of this just released a touring version of the H2. We're back in horsepower war central that, I mean, we faced a couple of decades ago again too, when we've got 165 horsepower adventure bikes. That, I mean, no longer is that classified as a motorcycle. It is classified as an earth mover.
Yeah.
it just, so I mean, literally, if you need to dig a trench in your yard, hold the front brake.
Yeah. It's a very sexy trailer or a tractor at that point.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see what this looks like, what its target market is. Can't really tell much, obviously, from these pictures. That leaves a lot to an imagination. But obviously, for the other bike, that one, I'm pretty sure the target market is people that like to climb walls. It will be interesting to see how that goes. And I mean, it's sharp looking. I like it. Obviously, all great componentry on it. They thought outside the box with it and said, let's go straight up a wall. And I think they're going to be pretty successful with it.
Yeah, you're not wrong, especially with that extended swing arm.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing screams hill climber. That is in my mind really just about the only thing you're going to be doing with this
Correct.
bike. I don't know what else you're going to be doing, because I mean, we're all going to have to wait and see. It's very, very exciting news, though. I personally I've now already put it in my calendar to go up to Destination Daytona and get pictures of this. So hopefully I can get some really good shots and bring them to you here on the show. We're always bringing you the breaking news out here at On the Throttle. Now, what do you have going on in your neck of the woods, Josh?
So going off of my dad joke earlier, because you know I need at least one of those per episode here. So this was one of the, I mean, if you think of cool brands in motorcycling, you think of Triumph. When you think of cool brands when it comes to just life in general, you got to go rock and roll. And at that point, you're going to go Gibson. Triumph and Gibson are partnering together to recreate the 1959 Legends, is what they're calling it. So in this, there's not many details other than there's a partnership. And it's to support Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, which I'll get into here in a second. So the details aren't fully available yet, but to me, what I see coming from this is probably some Triumph branding on a Gibson Les Paul. And on top of that, and if you check out the next slide here, so imagine the paint scheme that is on this guitar, if at the top there, if you can imagine that Sunburst 1959 paint scheme on that motorcycle, that to me is, I'm not necessarily kind of that style of bike guy, but I could be. I very well could be with this type of setup. That is raw sex appeal, I believe, right there. So what's so cool about it too is the fact, obviously, Triumph has sponsored the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride for a number of years. They've signed on, I believe, last year for another 5 years of this. For those of you that don't know, the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride is basically you are to dress in dapper apparel. The reason why I like it is it's close to a couple of men's causes, one of which is to raise awareness for prostate cancer. The other big one that's closer to me is men's mental health and suicide awareness. They have raised over $31.5 million for those two causes over the past number of years. It's involved 340,000 riders in 107 different countries. If you can get that many people riding motorcycles all for one cause, it's pretty awesome. Now, what could get people to ride motorcycles, obviously, other than a great cause, is sometimes it takes a little bit of a different approach to do that. So the big part with this is you are supposed to dress in dapper apparel. I actually had to go digging through the closet to find some clothes that I think I interviewed with in 10 years ago that somehow still fit me the last time I did this. But on the next photograph here, we've got a prime example of it. I am going to call out my good friend Joe, who Jacqui also knows, who is wearing his Bavarian flag suit on this. So you are to wear a suit and tie. If you notice there, he's wearing a bow tie. To see a bunch of people in suits and ties and scarves and ascots riding through the city in a parade on dapper bicycles. We were all riding the BMWs here. Makes a little sense with his suit. That is just quite a spectacle. It's great people. It's great fun. So to see some of the money from this partnership go towards Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, and obviously to bring more of that message forward, bravo all the way around. And like I said, if you look at that bike, those colors, nothing's been said yet, but I think there's a possibility of something could happen there. That yeah, I'm just all about it. So you've done the DGR, haven't you, Jacqui?
I have. And first things first, cheers, my friend.
Yes.
My fellow distinguished gentlemen. Yeah,
That's me.
I have ridden the DGR. I had the really super fun, good fortune of riding DGR in downtown Manhattan in 2015 or
Ooh.
16, which was bananas. So in a lot of these bigger communities, oh, actually even the mid-sized communities too, they work with the local police and law enforcement.
Yep.
That way they get a parade route service. That way you can run through the streetlights and everything. And I got to tell you, in downtown Manhattan, this was absolutely bananas. It was insane. It was super, super
Yes.
fun. Everybody stopping on the street corners, cheering and taking pictures and doing video. It's just a really very neat, cool thing. They've got a lot of
Yeah.
great partners. They've got a great partner in Triumph. They've been their motorcycle partner since the beginning, I believe. So it's really exciting, and I totally agree with you, by the way, about that sunburst paint. That would be so mental on a motorcycle. I'd be
Yeah.
so over the moon about it. That would be wonderful, wonderful. Speaking of really incredible events, though, and when is the DGR this year? It's in May sometime. Do you know the date off the top of your head?
I do not, but I can look it up.
Yeah, look it up. Well, there you go. Look it up while I'm talking about my next event. Okay, so
You got it.
speaking of great events that are going on for 2022, I had a couple more show up on my calendar. They have confirmed that it is happening. It is real. And those events are going to be the Quail Motorcycle Gathering, which does take place in May. And then I think I got a couple of slides and things to show you about that. And then also the International Motorcycle Show has changed its format a little bit of what they
Yeah.
used to do in the Wayback Machine during indoor time, wintertime trade shows. Because of COVID, they had to make a pivot and do outdoor shows only. And so it turned into a bit of a demo truck roundup. But here's the cool thing, that because it was a demo truck roundup, more OEMs, more manufacturers wanted to partake, which got more bodies out and more rides. But first things first, while we're talking about rad things happening in May, let's go ahead and talk about the Quail Motorcycle Gathering. This takes place up in beautiful, beautiful Monterey and Carmel area at the Quail Lodge. As you can tell, it is incredibly posh. Speaking of drinking your tea with your pinky in the air, that is what this event is all about. It's one of my most favorite events on the calendar. They do this brilliant lunch. It's on these gorgeous green lawns. It is like the cream of the crop motorcycles. Um, it is just absolutely epic and wonderful. If you have not heard of this event, do put this on your bucket list immediately, because even if you're just going to go during the day of the event, that is enough. But here's where it's even cooler. You can buy, although I'm sure they're sold out for this year, but in normal times that are not COVID times, you could have started purchasing VIP tickets. And that VIP ticket gets you a ride through like the Carmel, Monterey mountainside as a huge group ride. It stops for a lunch. You end up going to Laguna Seca and doing 2 or 3 laps on Laguna Seca on whatever bike you bring, whether it's an old bike, new bike, vintage bike, collectible bike, race bike, whatever. Whatever you ran through the mountainside on, you're going to run through Laguna Seca on as well. And then there is an incredibly posh VIP dinner with guest speakers. That all takes place the day before the Quail Motorcycle Gathering, and then the Quail happens the following day. So it is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful event. This year, the Quail takes place on May 14th. Usually it's a little bit earlier. It's like May, it's usually the first weekend of May, but again, COVID time. I've said it 500 times, but it's true. So the schedule's gotten a little bit zhuzhed around. This year, it's taking place on May 14th. And here's the really interesting news for me, because if you're a regular watcher of the show, you know that I am a huge BMW nerd. I ride pretty aggressively and religiously and put big miles on my very old 1972/5. In 2020, they were celebrating the 50-year anniversary of the /5. Again, old COVID reared its head, and so they had to cancel that year. So they are still paying homage and giving a little bit of love 2 years later to the BMW R series of bikes /5 series of bikes more specifically. They're also paying and giving a little bit of love to Harley-Davidson's XR750 race bike, MV Agusta's 750S, and then again that /5. Those are kind of their special featured bikes of the year, but they have everything there. It's just absolutely wonderful event. Now, here is the last thing that's going on my to-do list today, because this did just show up out on the internets this past week or so. Like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the International Motorcycle Show, also known as the IMS here, that is our touring regional. It used to be indoor trade show, but now they've totally flipped the skip and they are sticking to the all outdoor platform. This is what they are doing going forward. There is a very, very limited indoor aspect to this show going forward. In the Wayback Machine, it was all entirely indoors except for Long Beach. They had a demo trucks section outside. This, though, is all outside with a little bit of an inside feature. So they just announced they've got 8 IMS indoors, or 8 IMS outdoors, sorry, 8 IMS outdoors motorcycle shows scheduled for this year. They have got a stop in Colorado, Chicago, Pennsylvania, New York, Atlanta, Northern California, Arizona, and then Southern California at the end of the season, November 4th, 5th, and 6th. And for more information, you can head over to their motorcycle shows page out on the interwebs to get those exact dates. It runs, the first weekend is June 17th, 18th, and 19th in Colorado. Again, it goes all the way through the season. The last stop is in Southern California at November 4th, 5th, and 6th. What do you think about those 2 awesome events going on, Josh?
So yeah, it's funny. For some odd reason, they see me walk up to events like the Quail, and they're like, "No, you're not allowed in here." And I don't know why that is, but for some odd reason, just such a cool. Yeah, it could be the way that I grip my ham-fisted grip on my coffee cup or whatever. Could be part of it. It very much is a cool event. And I mean, it's always neat to see these, I mean, like museum pieces that you're just not going to see anywhere else. That is so cool with that. With the IMS stuff, look, everyone's had to adapt. The way that they've said, look, we're going to adapt so that way in the future, we don't really probably have to adapt. I think it's a good move on their part. I remember when the show would be in Cleveland, the dealers attending and stuff like that, they always felt it was good, but hey, look, we've got to adapt. We've got to move forward. It's changed with the times. I'm glad they're adapting to change with that. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and actually, what is also really interesting is traditionally during the indoor wintertime show series, the only outdoor event, the only demo truck event was in Long Beach in November
Yeah.
at the very beginning of the previous generations of this show. So they only had one weekend of doing demo truck. So now they have 8 stops of demo truck, and last year alone, they said they did over 35,000 demo rides throughout their entire show season. So
Yeah.
that is bananas. That's a lot of butts in seats, and that's what gets people convinced to buy new bikes, trade in their bike, go into a different segment, what have you. And as we've already talked about a couple of times on this show, 2020 and 2021 have been some of the biggest years for motorcycle sales
Yes.
ever in the history of several brands. So putting more butts in the seats, I mean, did that have anything to
Yep.
do with it? I mean, who knows? Maybe it did. Maybe it brought some new people to the table. Who's to say? But I think it's a very smart move. I totally agree with you. And it makes it, I think it's fun. It's exciting to be able to go and ride
Yes.
all of the different brands all in one spot, all in one weekend versus hunting and pecking and finding different dealerships in your area. So I'm really excited about that. And then what's your last story for today, Josh?
So GASGAS. This is a phenomenal kind of niche dirt bike maker. Some people, yeah, like you said, it's not a burrito joke. GASGAS has been around for actually a fair bit of time. GASGAS really actually used to be huge in trials and things of that nature. They have never had something going on the street until now. Now, the reason why you're seeing this instead of a spy photo is because of the fact we haven't seen anything quite yet. Now, what has been seen is in the updated VIN decoder that was just coming out to dealerships, be it GASGAS, KTM, or Husqvarna in the past, it was about 2.5 weeks ago. In that VIN decoder, there was an updated listing for GASGAS that had street legal in parentheses, which to me says, I think they're going to go a different direction here. Now, as we look all over the interwebs to figure out what this is going to be, for the most part, the consensus view is it's going to be based off of the 690/701 KTM/Husky. Will be based off of those. Those two do have some differences between them, that they share a platform, but they are different bikes, so it makes sense to have one or the other. To see where GASGAS lands in this, I think it's going to be very interesting. Frankly, I'm excited for another bike to be in the foray in that general range. I mean, these big enduros, these big supermotos, people love them. I mean, granted, I'm riding around on a 400cc bike, which when it comes time to stretch its legs, it just doesn't have them. To have something of this size that you could take in the woods, you could take to the supermoto track, but yet you can still take it on the freeway and not think, I'm going to die. That is a pretty good setup there. So to me, I'm excited to see what comes out of this. So, I mean, what's your history? Have you seen much with GASGAS? Have you swung a leg over one, Jacqui, or are
I
you more
haven't.
like me where
I've
you see them in the magazines and like drool?
No, I've seen them. I've seen them in life. There's a handful of dealers here in this middle part of America and heading down towards the
Yeah,
south a little bit into Georgia. There is Georgia and Tennessee both. There's a handful of gas dealers. So I'm really curious though about this because you're right. Their background
yeah,
is so like dirt bike, off-road, trials, right? Like that's
yep.
their whole bread and butter. So do you think this is going to be kind of like a 700cc Tenere? Are they going into like the middleweight adventure-y category? What do you think, Josh?
So they've listed an enduro and a supermoto. So I think this will be this super heavy enduro and supermoto. I mean that heavyweight of those. It's funny when you talk 700 cc's being the heavyweight. I know
Yeah.
that's you're kind of looking at that like those puny things. In my neck of the woods, those are ginormous bikes. So they're not as big as the Buell you talked about earlier, though.
Yeah, you must not be in GS or Pan America country then, because 700 to me is absolutely dead smack in the middle. It's a middleweight. It's a little guy.
It's one cylinder.
It's not quite a dirt bike, but it's a little guy, and it's a single. So I'm really curious to see though what happens
Yeah.
with this bike. I'm really excited for the design of it. It's a really interesting move on the part of GASGAS, who do have a relatively small footprint here in the United States,
Yep.
but there's so much growth in this middleweight adventure category. I'm really excited to see exactly what comes of it. So some very cool news going on out here in the world of motorcycling. Josh, hopefully I can go ahead and get those Buell pictures while I am down in Daytona over the weekend. I will make sure to bring you back an autographed King of the Baggers poster, because I know that's going to be hanging right there on your wall. I know it is your most favorite thing.
I will put it right there if you bring me one.
I'll keep an eye out. The opening weekend, though, I will be at the Sons of Speed race, which goes on at New Smyrna Speedway. I mentioned it on last week's show because it is such an incredibly cool and special, crazy thing. 100-year-old motorcycles racing with no brakes on a very, very banked asphalt surface. It's going to be a hoot. I can't wait. And then a couple fun days in the sun, and then I come on back. So I'll see you guys next week. But thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Don't forget to click, like, and share this video with all of your friends that love hearing about awesome stuff going on out here in the world of motorcycling. And I will see you next week.